what we found have been the most reliable investments have been AI, where it is used to help you take what you do well and do what you do well in more places. So, for instance, I love video. I love the authentic stories we get from our residents, but I am not as good a videographer as I am an interviewer. So when the possibility of taking the professional photos that we have done by a much better photographer than me, and turning those into video clips for B-roll came along, I was like, oh yeah, oh hell yeah, because you know what Photoshop can control? The lighting, the sun, the cloud positions, the awful car that ended up in the front of my frame. Generating a video from an already photoshopped photo is a dream.
Welcome to Well Said, the podcast where we talk to healthcare leaders to learn how they're using video to better inform, engage, and inspire their audiences. I'm Greg Rossino. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. But folks, I need you to go ahead and strap yourselves in. We have an absolute marketing genius on the pod today. He's the nationwide digital marketing director at Hawthorn Senior Living. He is JC Spears. I cannot wait for y'all to hear this episode. I'm so excited about it. We literally talk about everything. We dig into how you create meaningful marketing to multiple generations. Say that 5 times fast. We talk about why storytelling plays such a huge role in creating powerful content. Now, you may think you know the answers, but you don't. Just keep listening. And then we talk about where video and AI are going next. There's a Blade Runner reference towards the end of this podcast. Again, literally everything. So strap yourselves in, get ready, because JC Spears is on Well Said. JC, you're the man. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I know your time is valuable. To kick things off, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the role you're currently playing at Hawthorn. You're overseeing digital marketing nationwide. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis? And what are some of the big priorities you're thinking about right now when it comes to digital strategy and growth?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I think adding any type of marketing at enterprise scale, as most people who have been in this space can tell you, it's a little bit of a wild ride. It feels, all the stories I hear, somebody is always surfing, somebody is always, in the weeds, someone's surfing in the weeds. But as we kind of go through the process, what it really is, any marketing at scale is just a matter of saying, we're going to be having a conversation. And the larger we raise the scale, what we're saying is we're going to be having more conversations concurrently at the same time in different places with different people, but that we still know the sum total of the type and tone and number of conversations we're going to be having. And we start to create an ecosystem where those conversations bend towards our preferred outcomes. So I work in senior housing, which means I work in the biggest life transition most people are going to make after they turn 25. Yeah. So I have a real way I want these stories, conversations to go. And so do the people that are having them. And my role as a marketer is to say, hey, we know that, when we look inside our CRM, that we're going to comfortably have 100,000 conversations like this year. What do I need to create in that ecosystem that makes this conversation meaningful for you? Because, man, are we not all a little exhausted of meaningless freaking conversations? Like, you're tired of asking, where's the nearest burger joint? Well, thank you so much for asking, JC. Burgers are really important to your national profile. Have you checked in with your cardiologist lately? There's 17 burger joints near you. Would you like them rated according to Michelin star rating, local service rating? I'm like, I just wanted a snack. So how do we start to think about making those conversations meaningful at scale? And that's what my role is. My role is to actually not only have all of those granular details happening, but be able to pull back far enough that I can say, we're going to make some choices that may seem a little bit not intuitive on the ground because it has a cascade effect about the kinds of conversations we're having. And the ones I always like to bring to people, the first off is, how we talk about ourselves. And so at our organization, one of our big shifts has been to say, hey, right now we're saying, let's change our language to talk more about the people we want to talk to. And so anytime you start to change that position of the conversation from being the guy on the date who only talks about himself for an hour and a half, right, and then goes, hey, did you want to order a salad or something? Like, a lot of marketing experiences feel like that. I walk into somebody's brand space and they're like, me, you, specifically your money. Let's talk about giving that to me. And right. So I love taking a look at how these relationships and how these conversations happen in real time. And on the senior living space, since it's so personal to people, I get the privilege of both working with the technology of the infrastructure, but with a really clear mandate to make these personal moments meaningful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no when we first started in it, there's this whole concept of like you always want to be able to be all things to all people, and people are always saying you can't, and that doesn't stop anyone from trying. Like we wouldn't call ourselves people pleasers if we were capable of just turning it off when someone told us it was ineffective.
Yeah.
Uh, but we have a huge issue with that, like as brands, like that we just instantly want to be liked, but we got to move past that. We got to move into those areas of where we're starting to have more in-depth conversations about who is hearing what. And here's one of my favorite components like that. People are going to engage with the conversation differently with me based off of if they are that resident prospect or their kids or their grandkids. Because, I mean, just think of it. If you order food for yourself at a restaurant and then you have someone that you would trust enough to order for you, do you think even if you ended up ordering the same meal that you'd order it the same way? Do they know your order so well that they know how to order your steak, that they know the ratio of butter to mushrooms that you like topping it, like, and are able to actually create the experience you would create for yourself? Most of us, no. They're going to make sure you get a plate of stuff you're not allergic to and double bonus points if it's something that you would generally like. But the most personalized experience is the one we design for ourselves. So senior living lives in this tension environment that I think really is only duplicated maybe in secondary education with college,
Right.
where you have what one person would really desire for themselves and what is wanted for them by all the influential people around them, and balancing those stakes against each other. What we've discovered is that people though are really transparent about their expectations of reality
So,
if you take a moment to look. So what we did was we dove right into all of our data for the people who just fill out our contact us forms. And what we learned was residents, potential residents, older adults are more likely to actually go all the way through our web experience, bless them, and and get to the bottom and fill out the form, and they're going to give me the story context for the most part. Like they're by the time they get there, they're going to fill out the information, but they're also going to try to give me as much context as possible with the idea that I'm going to be as much help as possible. There's an implied social contract happening there.
right.
When I have the adult children by a margin of about 30%, so not say that all adult children are like this way, but about 30% more than their parents, they're not going to go to the bottom. They're going to pick the first CTA that happens at the top of the screen, and they're going to be like, I need floor plans and pricing. Thanks, bye.
Yep. Yep.
Same experience, same final product, but a massive difference in initial expectation, a massive difference in the kind of conversation they're going to have, right? An older adult who's looking at this type of scenario is trying to deal with both the internal trauma of having had their parents age already. So they have all the frameworks in their mind about what aging looks like, what getting older means for them, what death or mortality might mean for them, and then all of the other components about their life. And then they have their kids or their grandkids or the people that are close to them that at the end of the day largely just want them to be okay.
Right.
And so we have two really competing incentives here. And part of our challenge is to basically send messages to them that are going to be impactful, but that don't necessarily privilege one perspective over the other.
Okay. Okay. I mean, the best follow-up question is how difficult is it to create that kind of content where you're meeting both audiences?
I think for the longest time, it's been hard. And I think that's why if any of you have gone shopping for senior living in the last decade, you're going to understand what I mean, that you found, oh, look, a navy blue and burgundy based website with some gold accents. And it looks halfway like a military flag. There's a lot of like buildings from a vertical perspective in it. And there's like, lots of pastoral settings. As my friend said, there's lots of, old people sitting around doing nothing. And you start looking through our marketing materials and industry. And what you'll see, especially even on places that are that are modern and that are current, but they're borrowing so much of their marketing experience and language from care organizations, from senior living, from assisted living, from memory care and skilled nursing care. And they're pulling those languages into these other components. But when we start dealing with folks who don't need you, right? They don't have a care scenario that requires them to change their lifestyle. They just have the opportunity to change their lifestyle for one that might be more fulfilling, that might make more financial sense given their long-term goals, that might be less stressful, that might open up opportunities for more of what they want out of their life.
Yeah.
But they have to move through that emotional journey without the added boost of personal physical need. The environment won't demand them to change. So you have to be attractive. And what I've seen is prior to these latest turns, that for the most part, yeah, it was very much a one size fits all. You choose when you design your brand experience if you're the type of company that's going to talk to the people or the kids. And most of the time, because of how tightly it's associated with other forms of senior housing, where the ability to make that decision safely for the individual is less sure, they tend to just focus on the kids. And what we're discovering is that there's a giant demographic of highly independent, affluent social agers out there who just feel completely disengaged with the scenario and have no interest in having their kids trying to make a decision for them. And then when they see your building, all of their thoughts about the facilities of their parents are the first thing that comes through. So you have to do what we want to do. This is the first time we can really do both. And the reason we're able to do both is because of scalable technology like AI. So we're going to get more into this about video, but for this perspective alone, one of the big things we've been able to do is to be able to take quality micro campaigns. Let's say I have a micro campaign about housing stress. I can take that and I can take my psychographic profile of the resident, and I can take the one of their kid. And I can basically say, hey, here's my approved version of the one for the resident, given the difference between these psychographic profiles and given a relationship status of green, meaning green is they're in roughly a good relationship. Yeah. Write me a version of this campaign for the kid. Same CTA outcome goals, same probably links that we're doing, but we're going to have some opportunities to do so. And then the secret that I love to put in is have opportunities to actually CC the other person involved. Not enough of these channels are offering to include more people as you go. But there is an incredible power in helping to facilitate cross-relationship communication when you're dealing with an account-based buying environment. And if you're selling to a whole family, you may be B2C, but that family becomes an account at the end of the day.
Okay. That's fascinating. I kind of want to stick with this. You know, in terms of platforms that you're using, what digital channels do you think matters the most to you? And then what are maybe ones that are overrated that people talk about a lot, but you're not seeing any value out of it?
So again, focus is a big deal here. Channel selection is basically an audience selection tool, because no audience is on all channels.
Yeah.
So in our case, because we are highly resident focused, we probably do way more print than anybody would imagine. However, that print now comes with QR codes that are building into dynamic web experiences. So it's not like a solo channel. Having connected print environments where a person who attends your event gets a thank you card in the mail the next day because we've pinged their address against the USPS system. Yeah. That's all very viable now. So we're really talking connected print when we talk about those channels. I think that the email experience is still really solid, but you've got to be better than the average bear. I think most email marketing is just really struggling to figure out the kind of value they want to provide. And I'll tell people right up front, like, provide more in smaller bites. And make sure your systems are capable of offloading people if they subscribe to more than one campaign at a time. Because it's really easy to overwhelm folks. Social, I really like, but I feel, especially in my industry, that social is a brand development spectrum, basically meaning that the minute I move into social, I'm less targeting individual seniors than I am their families.
Right.
And so so the content I'm looking for becomes really lifestyle focused. I'm not trying to convince anybody to move in. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build the argument that living here is better than where you're living now. So rather than specific marketing focuses, I'm just going to do activity highlight reels. Garth Brooks dropped in because his mother lives in our community and did a one-off concert. Like rando things that I can do to build the perception of the lifestyle becomes how we pick our channels. But more and more as we go, what we're realizing is the content it's not king, it's key. At every step of the interaction, what you choose to make for your content is an incredibly potent choice that you need to be able to both make and unmake quickly. So as we're coming into our new year, we're looking at all of our new content relationships. The AI realm has made the slot market insane. And so, but also people's attention spans and patience for getting through stuff much less because of the amount of volume that comes out of those generative environments. So we're taking our content that was done by professional writers and is beautifully linked and is all set up, and I'm cutting it into thirds, fourths, fifths in order to make it more digestible as people move through the process. And so we have that, but for us personally, I think that the only really way forward, if AI and enhanced technology has done anything for us, it has made it so we don't have to pick a channel, that we can start to pick an audience and create omni-channel experience options where we take our best content and we resize it and modify it slightly using generative AI or user-generated content in order to actually hit the same message in a different channel. Yeah. And I think having personalized omni-channel would be the route that as a marketer, I would want to build for, because now we finally can. Now it's not a one-to-one scalability ratio on every new market, every new language. I have to add a new section of my team to support it. Now I can say, hey, are our internal engineers doing a good enough job of framing our work so the generative system can reliably put it into Spanish? And do we have a proofing process to make sure that that's coming through the way we intend it to? And so are we building those redundancies and we're building those capabilities to allow us to scale at levels that we never have before? And it's been really exciting to start to imagine an organization that's empowered that way. Instead of using it to get rid of our lowest level of employee, we're using it to fundamentally alter the way we approach marketing internally, and our employees as a whole are being empowered through it.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing too, where I think that so many people think of AI as, oh, well, it's going to take over these jobs. When in fact, like if AI is used correctly, it's just enhancing everything and enhancing everybody. Right. Like, I think that's the way I certainly look at it. And so I kind of want you to elaborate a little bit more on that. So for AI, it's just, you're using AI to help kind of just spread out more, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, what we found have been the most reliable investments have been AI, where it is used to help you take what you do well and do what you do well in more places. So, for instance, I love video. I love the authentic stories we get from our residents, but I am not as good a videographer as I am an interviewer. So when the possibility of taking the professional photos that we have done by a much better photographer than me, and turning those into video clips for B-roll came along, I was like, oh yeah, oh hell yeah. Because you know what Photoshop can control? The lighting, the sun, the cloud positions, the awful car that ended up in the front of my frame. Generating a video from an already Photoshopped photo is a dream compared to actually trying to go capture B-roll shots of an empty building in real life. Right. And I think we've definitely have some of those on the ground pieces where it's really kind of empowering us, but over and over again, it's just become how can we go deeper than we did before? And where I feel like a lot of brands are being very loud and saying they're going to go really wide. And we do have some places that we want to go wider, but if we're really looking about what makes powerful marketing, it's always been the case that if you can go really wide, then your larger pool of people will help bring you some more success. Like, it's just math. And that's why it's been pay to play forever. Like, that's the whole fundamental concept of advertising. Right. More people, more money, more clicks, more sales. That's the whole thing. But as someone who has spent most of my career specialized on the organic side of things, I can say that there is also a place to say that, hey, the advertising guy is the person who's going to expand their business fastest. So if expansion is the goal, great.
Right.
But the guy who is building deep channels is the person you're never going to be able to knock off the top of that industry. You can't out SEO Coca-Cola. They've been doing it too deep, too long. You are not going to out content Disney for the same damn reason. And it's not just their brand weight from an SEO perspective, it's that they have been developing high value content and infrastructure around the things they do best, going deeper and deeper into the market of people that most appreciate them, whether it's older adults or kids. Everybody gets Disney's attention at some point. Right. If they're in that market. Same thing for Coca-Cola, whether it's they're inventing a new type of bottled water for the health conscious person, or they're inventing a new type of soda for the gamer. They give deep attention to the markets that they're going to be investing in. And while it's so tempting to take technology like this and be in awe about how wide we can go, the real power is in enabling you to go deep fast. So that you can say, hey, look, I do have two audiences. I have residents and their kids. I also have, and that means I can do double the amount of content. But now I can take those same psychographic profiles and start pulling lifestyle data for those same people. And because we all know your phone's listening to everything you do, I can validate if you were wondering. Yeah. And not only does it do it, I can buy lists about it. And I can buy the lists that tell me the people in the neighborhood who like the dogs, and the people in the neighborhood who like the cooking shows, and the people in the neighborhood who like, home electronics, and who like jogging versus biking. Like it's all there. It's all for sale. It's not even that expensive. And on the one hand, everyone's like, oh, I don't want another coupon thing. I'm like, you're totally right. But if I know among all of my customers that I have a disordinate amount of pet people, and that's because my buildings have one of the most generous pet policies ever. Like most of them don't have a pet fee. They don't charge anybody as long as you keep them out of common areas. Like it's a great place to be a pet owner. And I'm like, so then I was like, well, it's so much easier than to take those profiles, find those synergies among lifestyles, and develop micro campaigns or even macro campaigns, highlighting the fit for those customers within our existing culture. So we just start to get more granular and more focused, and which ultimately leads to personalization. Because once we can say, hey, this is Greg, this is Greg's mom, and here are their interest levels, the first time you show up, it is just normal. It's random, right? But the second time you show up, it's going to be men in Boston. And then the third time you show up, it's going to be men and dogs in Boston. And more granular, the more I get to know about you, with the goal that the personalization reflects the things that you've shared with me are the most important parts about your buyer's journey. And that gets reflected to you back in the website experience. I know, right?
Yeah. I wanted to swing back over to video for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because again, you're reaching out to two different kind of audiences. But in the senior living community, I would imagine that there are a lot of really, really impactful stories that you can tell on a regular basis, right? I would hope so.
Many.
Too many. Well, that's the thing. And so if I'm looking for something like this, emotion has to be a part of the stories that you're telling, right? Because I want to feel safe, and I want to feel like my parents are going to be in good hands, and I can trust y'all. I guess my question is this: is how important is emotion in telling these stories, and what types of videos really move the needle to get people to come to your websites to fill out the occupancy at the homes?
Yeah, sure. If I'm just going to throw out there though, if you're making videos without emotions, you're not making stories. You're making technical manuals.
Yeah,
and
that's true. That's a good point.
And I'm just going to shout out to all the technical writers out there. I appreciate you. And that is not a lesser art form. For every person who writes halfway decent technical documentation, you're my hero.
Well,
but
I will say this though. I see just like you, I watch a bunch of videos, and a lot of them are not technical support. And they don't have any emotion to them. They were created, and maybe that's because of AI, maybe for whatever reasons. But I do see a lot of videos out there where you're just kind of like, well, you didn't care about this, so why should I care about this?
Well, and I think that's reflected a lot in the statistics. And I think it's just as much you see what I call the hyper emotional nature. Like you see the really obviously workshop, compelling, emotional TikTok hook that gets you, 10 seconds into what looks like an interesting conversation before they start hawking some random piece of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's all super intentional. But if you're looking from a brand development perspective, and especially in video, there is emotion is everything when we're actually talking about the final story. In any given element of video, you get to interpret the pieces differently. So you can say like, hey, this piece of B-roll or that piece of B-roll has this tone, but until it's stitched in with everything else, that's at best uh, a first impression, because once you put it next to other things, that can change really quickly. But yeah, in our case, I mean, let's get real about it. If there's anything that I would consider a significant investment, so if you work in an industry where what people spend on working with you is more than they spend in a month working, paying their car payment, like you are a high value industry, which means no one is spending money with you without a story,
Right.
period. Unless it's a B2B organization and they've written off that level of money, but no customers above like the several $100 mark are routinely putting that money into any other brand without having a story they're telling themselves about why their money goes that way. So if you're making stories for a brand that hits that checkpoint and you're not putting emotions in your stories, then you are just finding a new way to explore your own creativity and waste your company's money in the process. And if you got to learn, hey, like
That's a
that's a
great way to learn, right?
totally valid way to learn. But if our goals are marketers, we need to be having conversations about the stories before we get to the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is why the so much of what makes good marketing is good ideation, good testing, and good preparation.
Yes.
And in video, that's even more sure. So for us personally, I think I've gone through four four completely different iterations of the storyboard, two of which were so diametrically different in order to create really specifically different outcomes, right?
Right.
Because the questions and the flow of the conversation that I have is different. And amusingly to me, it's usually backwards. So if we're talking about conversations with other people, then it starts to get interesting because you have two types of stories we can tell, right? We have pretend stories where we're going to put actors or other people in play in order to present the representation of a real life scenario or a plausible hypothetical. And in order to punch on that emotion without actually having to traumatize anybody. Like this is your typical brand marketing, right? This is the what's up frogs. This is just quick emotional hit and you're out. If you're going with real experiences though, you can do it one of two ways. You can do it what I call the bank way, which is where you have a nice voice only podcast interview and you use that as the voiceover for the very professional commercial you shoot. But if you're actually going to go real, and this is going to become an increasingly important question as AI becomes more proliferated, how much value does authenticity hold in your brand? That's going to vary on a per brand basis. But I can tell you, the more of money people are spending with you out of their pocket, the more your authenticity is going to translate to your trustworthiness. So bear that in mind as you're making these decisions. But in our case, we have to deal with real people because you're making an experience about where you want to live the next chapter of your life.
Right.
You're not going to want to do that to make those commitments to uproot a house that you've already paid for and go back to paying rent without seeing yourself successfully in that environment. So if we have to help you see yourself successfully there, a real authentic stories that relate to your experiences is the fastest way to do so. We do so through two ways. We do so on the ground in person when people move into our communities. We have ambassadors that just it's the guy in the hallway who's going to help you get going, know how it works, know when the food's happening, when the events are happening, who's the cool kids. Like I'm not going to pretend people don't make this into high school. We make everything into high school. Like
Right.
so, but we have that on the ground, and virtually by video, we do the same thing. Is what we do is we create resident interviews, and we go deeply in depth so that we can pull out the elements of those stories, and we use the automatic transcribing features of modern video to pull those transcripts out quickly and then start to analyze them going, well, what were the major tags we want to associate with this story? So we have two tracks that become available to us. One is we have the story of that person, and that's super meaningful. And I can have that say, hey, Greg, here's Jim's story. I thought you might find it familiar. But if I also know that you're just, here's one thing I know that happens. Most guys aren't good enough in the kitchen. Guys, if you're listening to this, don't suck in the kitchen. Go learn how to cook. Go learn how to do dishes. Don't be that guy. Um, but a lot of us do. And so if you find yourself older and living on your own and you're bad in the kitchen, the self-care routine tends to take a bit of a tumble. And so we've been putting together some montage videos that are talking about people who gained weight, lost weight, but that the change in their food environment was a real meaningful factor to their quality of life, especially since things like a poor diet can accelerate mental decline, but that can often be reversed when someone actually gets back into a healthy environment. So a lot of things that we associate with just getting old is shit healthcare or self-care. And and until we get into a better environment, it's very hard to tell the difference between something that is acute because of our lifestyle or more chronic from just life itself. And so we want people to be able to have those experiences. So we have now the ability, if you start to do these stories at scale, where I can have the food stories video in addition to the one-on-one conversations. But that takes depth. These aren't 5-minute pop-up video interviews for us. These are 45-minute conversations. And amusingly, if you need to go after depth for your customers, here's a good secret for you. The good stuff is at the end.
That's right.
But you're going to show it in the beginning. So when you do the interview, you're going to start with, hi, how you doing? What's your favorite color? You know, yeah, I like pizza too. And like, we're going to talk about all the stuff.
Comfortable.
Yep. We're going to do the small talk and we're going to talk about the stuff that everybody talks about. And that conversation is the permission to ask the questions that really matter to people. So in our case, I get to say, hey, so tell me about the mind space you were in when you finally decided to take a look at something else. Like what kept you from looking sooner? Like, let's dig into your state of mind and why. And asking someone to be that kind of vulnerable with someone they met half an hour ago is not nothing.
Yeah. No, I think that's one thing too, where, I mean, like you, I've been doing this a very long time. I've been talking to people, interviewing people, whether it's for newspapers or for videos. And there's just this misconception that, oh, okay, they're just going to sit down and give you, and be an open book, and they're going to give you, and sometimes they are, but most times they're like, I don't know you, like, you know, okay. But the more that conversation goes along, the more you kind of develop a rapport and you kind of go back and forth, and that's when things really open up. So I completely agree with you that it's like the good stuff always happens towards the end, and that's the stuff that you move all the way up to make it look like, oh wow. I know. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have two more questions for you, but what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, and so much of that ability comes from that transcription process. Those transcripts, those tags about what people were dealing with from pain points, and those AI analytics were what informed the new storyboards that we made that were more heavily targeted towards getting to those outcomes. So it's all a self-feeding loop. Like, have an idea, get a framework for it, try it, put your results through the system and see how close you got, and try another iteration. Right. Video, there's nothing about AI that's going to change the process of getting better, just the speed at which improvement can happen.
Yes. Agreed. Okay. So my last question is, it's always one of my favorites. And it's a kind of a two-parter for you. The question of itself is, where do you think video is going in the next 5 years? And I understand 5 years is a very, very long ways away. So let me do it this way. I should just rephrase the question to begin with. What excites you about digital marketing and senior living in the next year or two? And then the second part of that is, you know, what do you think, where do you think video is headed, in that same time frame as a whole? And what are your expectations for it?
Yeah, I think senior living is going to have a little bit of an awakening around market segmentation. And I expect to see a lot better forms of communication coming out of the industry. And really what this is going to mean is going to be easier for people to figure out what they can afford. It's going to be easier for people to figure out what a good fit means.
Yeah.
And if it's done well, it'll mean directly approaching at a very large scale the conversations around how do we view retirement? How do we view this phase of existence in a way that is more empowering than here's your gold watch, go away, please. And I think those are things I'm really looking forward to from a marketing direction space. From a pure like where do I see like video and media and marketing going? I think there's twofold that everybody should be watching for. I think one is I expect the tools around the video to become an order of magnitude more accessible. What was really easy to do with photos because of how many years of automation and AI experience was already built into engines like Photoshop and Affinity and Canva. Like most of what is in a generative AI has been a button you had to push in another program for a while.
Yeah.
And so it made that transition easier. I think that you're going to see some of that happen in video. I think that having AI that is able to understand video will be the biggest difference. So an AI that can look at your storyboard, that can actually look at your edit cuts, that can allow you to do fine-tuned editing, the ability to fix specific scenes. So one of the areas I'm looking at right now is sometimes when someone says something really personal, they like kind of look down and away. And because they're kind of having those internal emotions.
Yeah.
But that looking down and away is an antitrust signal for the people who are watching you from the outside. And so it'd be a lot better for me to be able to show that moment if I could actually raise that person's head a little bit and allow the impact of that statement to come across without the negative trust subtext.
Yes.
And those are and these are very like they're delicate choices. And they're ones where the best practice is going to be to loop in the person that you're filming with and have transparency in regards to how you treat people's images and their voice with AI, and let some of that guidance help you develop trust about how you use it as a brand. Trying to do it all internally before anyone can get mad at us or sue us is just a recipe for suspicion, right? So find a way to bring your plans outside to be inclusive. And if someone tells you no, honor it, and then kind of crow about it a little bit so other people will trust that if they tell you no, that they can count on you. So one is I expect a lot more tools in this area, but two is we have just started to see the release of really reasonable wireless VR headsets. And that's on top of seeing new augmented reality technology that's dropping the size of the pixels projected down into the nanometer range. And for those who are science nerds at home, that means projecting the pixels onto your contact lens at the smallest size that science allows. So it's an 8 nanometer is the wavelength for the color orange, right? And the pixel size is 8.3 nanometers. So it doesn't, if you go any smaller than this, you would literally change the way physics works with light in order to make color happen. But we're talking about projecting a full 4K experience onto your contact lens from something as simple as a pair of glasses. And that technology is like in the lab working now. So what I expect is that in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see quick video that I could direct from first cut into finish cut verbally through an AI cloud service and have it pretty immediate pass through. But I think you're also going to start to see more immersive video and AR experiences as the technology gets less expensive and as the ability to go directly into our environment becomes more appropriate. It's not very far away. Like if you saw them light up the Washington Monument last week on 3 dimensions with a flag, like, can you tell me how hard it would be to pay Amazon $15 for an Echo for a month? And all you do is sit it in the room and it projects new furniture styles onto your room.
Right.
So that you could just set the whole room up.
Just see it.
Just see it. And then you're like, okay, cool. I like this one. You build the shopping list, you ship the thing back, and you're good to go. Like, so I think we're going to have a lot more opportunities around highly accurate projection rendering than we've ever had before. And what that means for video is going to be a lot of fun.
Didn't they do that in Blade Runner? That's, Ridley Scott. He knows what he's doing. That's a great place to end it. JC, you're the man. thank you so much for joining the podcast and for talking. I really appreciate it, man. This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, Greg. Hoping to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. That's 100% happening. I can promise you that much. Everybody, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you again next episode.